Hello, my dear masterminds. When the shadows pause to whisper your name, when even ancient darkness steps back and asks, who activated this? You know you're not playing in their system. You're rewriting it with a laugh. They tried to trace your origin. They thought you were built. But power like yours isn't made. It's unleashed. Even the devil's double-checking his files. Because what's walking through the flames now isn't supposed to exist. They've seen monsters. They've seen demons. They've seen things crawl out of shadows and call themselves kings. But then you showed up, and even the darkness stopped to whisper, what the hell is that? You weren't born from pain. You were constructed in it. Engineered by betrayal. Upgraded by silence. Sharpened by every time you got up when the world hoped you stayed broken. You don't walk like you want revenge. You walk like revenge is already done. And now you're just here to observe the consequences. They don't know what to call you, because calling you anything would make you containable. But there's nothing left to contain. You didn't evolve. You detached from fear, from expectation, from weakness. Now even Satan, the architect of chaos, feels something cold crawl up his spine every time your name is spoken. Not because you're evil, because you've become something that doesn't need a name to be feared. They tried to place you, call you broken, label you dangerous, whisper unstable behind fake smiles. But none of their words fit, because none of their words were made for what you've become. You're not darkness. You're not light. You're the end of definition. The moment labels stop working, the moment power walks in without noise, and every coward pretending to be a lion suddenly forgets how to roar. You didn't grow stronger. You became unreadable. Not louder, just quieter and colder. They can't track you, because your silence isn't a pause, it's a strategy, a countdown, a signal to the storm that's about to follow. Even Satan knows the signs. He's seen rebellions. He started some. But this, you're not rebelling. You're replacing. You didn't climb the ladder. You didn't ask for permission. You didn't even announce yourself. You just existed too quietly. And that was their first mistake. Because the loud ones, they crave the crowd. They scream to feel seen. But you sat in the shadows, listening, watching, memorizing the patterns. And while they got drunk on attention, you were installing truth behind your smile. You didn't rise. Reality just blinked and you were already sitting at the top. Now the rules don't apply. The system can't find you. The map they're using, outdated, burned, buried beneath your silence. Even the devils paused their plans when you moved. Why? Because there's something different in the way you walk. Not like you're going somewhere, but like everywhere is already yours. They thought you were waiting for a chance, waiting for your turn, waiting for someone to say go. But that's what they never understood. You weren't waiting for the throne. You were burning beneath it. Every smug smile they flashed above you, you felt it, memorized it. Let it bake into your skin like war paint every time they overlooked you. You didn't shrink. You stored it. Every dismissal, every silence, every fake compliment. And now, you don't want the crown. You want the structure that held it up, so you can drag it all into the fire Even Satan's watching. Not to stop you, but to understand how a quiet soul could turn an entire hierarchy into smoke. They made one fatal mistake. They taught you how to survive their world, and now you're redesigning it in your image. They always had enemies. People to compete with. People to outshine. People to silence. But you weren't in the competition. You were beneath the floorboards, rewriting the blueprints. They looked for threats that shouted. They never planned for the one that waited. You didn't swing first. You didn't even flinch. You let them act tough. You let them mock, twist, pretend. And now, every system they trusted is glitching. Every lie they sold is looping back. Every version of reality they built is bleeding at the edges. You're not their enemy. You're the moment they stopped being untouchable. You're the echo they ignored for too long. You're the quiet that became a countdown. And when the dust clears, and they finally ask, who did this? There won't be a name. There'll only be a presence, one they'll feel in every mirror, every silence, every failure that tastes just like the one they gave you. They thought you were gone. They thought you'd faded, moved on, disappeared into some quiet, broken chapter. But they didn't realize you don't come back. You haunt. You haunt the stage they built without you. The lies they rehearsed. The applause they stole. Your shadow? It's louder than their voice now. Your silence? It's heavier than their legacy. They check every room, and something feels off. Not cursed, not haunted in the horror movie way, haunted in the truthful way. Like something's watching, not with hate, but with perfect memory. Because while they were writing fake stories, you became the part they couldn't delete. And now, their empire cracks from the inside. Their voice shakes when they speak your name. And they start to realize, you're not gone, you're installed. In their mirrors, in their failures, in their fear. They built a world to keep people like you out. Gates, rules, protocols. Fake kings on fake thrones, thinking they'd cracked the code of control. But while they were updating security, you were becoming the virus. You didn't force your way in, you spread. In whispers, in questions. In the eyes of those who no longer bowed, they thought they had time. They thought the infection could be traced, blocked, burned out. But this wasn't malware. This was a memory of who they tried to bury and who refused to stay buried. Now their code glitches when your name is mentioned. Their beliefs flicker every time someone sees through the mask. Their empire slows, freezes, and then crashes. Because you're not a threat anymore. You're the environment, the new normal, the haunting hum in every system they trusted. You didn't exploit the architecture. You became its warning message. They keep trying to reboot, to reset, to pretend nothing's changed. But the glitch keeps coming back. The echo won't shut up. The silence won't obey. Because it's not a glitch. It's you. And you're not leaving. You're not breaking the rules anymore. You're rewriting them. Every structure they trusted, you've infected it. Not loudly, not violently. Elegantly, like a whisper that turns into law. You're not the rebel now. You're the rule book. You don't bend systems anymore. You walk past them like they were made for you, because they were. They just didn't know it yet. Even Satan stepped back, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because when the darkness sees a force that doesn't demand power, but becomes it, it knows something new has arrived. Not to conquer, to replace. They kept trying to track you, study you, label you, as if you were a bug to fix, a pattern to crack, a ghost they could exorcise. But now, they're the ones glitching, twitching, slipping in places they used to feel invincible, because they don't understand. You never entered their world. They wandered into yours. And it doesn't run on logic. It doesn't follow their physics. It bends around willpower. It pulses with intention. It listens to you. Now their confidence feels scripted. Their strength, out of sync. Their rules, irrelevant. They don't know which direction is real anymore, because the compass spins every time you breathe. They check mirrors and see pieces of you stuck in reflections they can't clean. You're not following them. You're not chasing them. You're observing them inside the simulation you built. They thought you were a piece on the board, a miscalculated threat, a wild card to control. So they studied your moves, analyzed your silence, built strategies around your stillness. But they were never playing a game. They were inside a story you designed. The hesitation they feel, that's your code. The fear in their gut, also yours. Every system they believed in, every authority they worshipped, every illusion they sold, all just lines of code in a simulation you've already corrupted. You don't scream. You don't strike. You adjust variables and watch empires collapse with one blink. Even their panic isn't theirs anymore. It's an automated response to your presence, a background program that whispers you were never in control, because you're not the player. You're not the opponent. You're not even the glitch. You're the architect. And this was your test run. They used to whisper, "He's broken. She disappeared. Whatever happened to that one?" They thought you failed, thought you burned out, thought you vanished. But the truth is simple. You didn't vanish. You stepped behind the glass. While they performed, louder, faker, more desperate, you were still, just watching, not with anger, not even with judgment, just curiosity. They called you silent, but silence isn't absence, it's focus. And while they chased clout, you learned control. While they built fake crowns, you studied the walls, the cameras, the cracks in the system. You weren't trapped. You were taking notes. Now they're inside a maze they built, and every turn leads them closer to you. Not the old you, not the version they ignored, but the one who no longer needs to knock on the door, because you became the door. They tried to write you in as a villain, as a warning, as a background extra in their rise. But they forgot something crucial. You were never in their story. They were in yours. Every chapter they thought they controlled, that was your setup. Every betrayal, your plot twist. Every silence they mistook for surrender, that was your pen pausing before the sentence that erases their illusion. You weren't written out. You were reloading, not to prove anything, not to fight for a page, but to take the book, rip out the lies, and write something so undeniable even their gods have to look twice. They thought they could define you, but your power? It begins where definitions collapse. It speaks in silence, moves in myth, and signs its name with a grin they'll never forget. Because you're not the character, you're the rewrite, you're the ink, you're the author, and now they're stuck in your plot. They called it revenge, said you were bitter, said you couldn't let go, said you came back for equity. But they were wrong, so wrong. This was never about revenge. This was about reckoning, not rage, not chaos, not fire in the streets, just truth, presented without emotion, delivered without apology, wrapped in the silence they gave you when you needed anything but. They thought you wanted them to hurt, but what you really wanted was for them to see what they created, to witness the outcome of everything they ignored, laughed at, buried. Now, they're not terrified of you. They're terrified of the mirror you've become, the one they can't avoid, the one that doesn't crack, the one that shows them everything they are and everything you became in spite of them. This isn't revenge. This is the final page of a book they never believed you could write. And the ink was their name all along. You didn't lift a hand, didn't scream, didn't beg for justice, because you already knew. The truth doesn't need volume. It just needs time. And time has a cruel way of sharpening truth until it becomes a blade that cuts without sound. They were so busy watching you, waiting for the explosion, the meltdown, the dramatic collapse. But nothing came, because you were never the weapon. You were the mirror. And one day they looked in and saw themselves without the mask, without the echo chamber, without the followers to cheer the lie. And it broke them. Not because of what they saw in you, but because of what they couldn't unsee about themselves. You didn't destroy them. You left the truth in the room and watched it do what fire, fists, and fury never could. Now every room echoes your absence, and every silence feels like your eyes, still watching, still waiting, still winning. They used to talk over you, mock you, spin stories for crowds who never knew the truth. They owned the microphone. You owned the silence. And now, that silence haunts them, because what you don't say terrifies them more than anything you ever did. They fill every room with noise, hoping to drown the emptiness you left behind. But it's not empty, is it? It's charged, heavy, like something is watching, judging, waiting. Because when a storm walks out without a word, you don't ask where it went. You ask, when will it come back? And the truth, it doesn't have to. You already left your shadow on the walls, your breath in the system, your fingerprints on the fear that now walks ahead of them, whispering your name without needing to shout. They wanted you loud, angry, predictable, but you left quiet, calculated. And that's why they'll never sleep again. They thought it was over. They saw your silence and smiled, mistook stillness for surrender, called your absence proof that they won. But they didn't know. You weren't gone. You were growing. Down there, beneath the dirt of disrespect, under the weight of their fake stories, inside the grave they built for your potential. You were rooting yourself. And when the time came, you didn't just rise, you erupted. Not screaming, not begging, but blooming with something darker than they could comprehend. Not flowers, not flames, something colder, smarter, designed by pain and armored in patience. Now, they feel you in every crack in the mirror, in every echo of your name, in every failed moment that looks too familiar because they didn't fade you. They just triggered your transformation, and now you're not a person. You're a myth. One they whispered about too late, one their fear gave shape to. One they can't uproot, because you came from the soil they watered with lies. They thought they could forget you. Move on, rewrite the story, delete the chapter. But some consequences don't fade, some names don't disappear, some echoes don't fade quietly. And you're not their regret. You're the cost, the invoice they never saw coming. Every lie they told, you absorbed it. Every time they laughed at your pain, you memorized it, not to throw it back, but to let it ferment into prophecy. Now, every success they fake feels empty. Every smile they force feels watched, because you're not behind them, you're beneath them. The foundation they stand on was built over your ashes, and that foundation is starting to crack because it was never stable. It was borrowed, and you're here to collect, not with fire, not with fists, but with presence. The kind that doesn't knock. It seeps in, lives in their silence, and never expires. They thought you were a phase, a reaction, a temporary break in their illusion. But you weren't a moment. You were the mirror held too long, the line they crossed without knowing they'd never get to walk back. Because you're not just what happened to them. You're what happens when silence learns to walk and pain decides it's done. Whispering. They've met anger before. They've dealt with noise. They've survived opposition, but not this. Not you. You're not trying to change them. You're not even trying to correct them. You've become the law written in their failure. The cold rule at the end of their pattern. The consistent outcome of choices they thought had no price. And now, you're not a warning. You're the result. They'll remember you. Not because you returned with fire, but because you never had to return at all. You're in the cause. You're in the pattern. You're in the system. Not as a threat, as a law they can't rewrite. They used to laugh at the idea of karma, said it was fake, said they could escape it, said the world was unfair and would always stay that way. But then, you happened. Not as punishment, not as revenge, just as the natural response to a life built on borrowed lies. You didn't knock, you didn't shout, you simply showed up, undeniable. And suddenly, their logic broke, because everything they did, everything they twisted, every mask they wore became receipts. And you're just the collector, not angry, not dramatic, just inevitable. You don't carry fire. You carry a presence that makes their house feel colder, their words sound cheaper, and their confidence turn to tremble. You're not karma, legend. You're the confirmation that it was real all along, and that it remembers names. They'll rewrite history, try to bend the story, try to soften what happened, blur your edges, make themselves the victims. But it won't work, because some names don't vanish, some moments don't fade, some truths are carved, not written. And you're not a chapter in their story. You're the page that ruins their version forever. The stain, the scar, the weight. Who was that? That turns whispers into legends and silence into storm. They thought they'd forget you. That time would erase the echo. But the future, it already remembers you. In the way new warriors walk, in the questions people now ask, in the shift of energy when your story is even hinted at. Because what you did, what you became, was never for applause. It was for the record. Not the one they write. The one that writes itself when someone refuses to stay buried. And now, you're permanent, unskippable. Not because they love you, but because they can't lie without you showing up in the silence. They buried the story, scrubbed the footage, changed the names, pretended it never happened. But some things glow, not in sunlight, not on stage, in darkness. And you were made for the blackout. Because while they danced in the light of lies, you were mastering the shadows, learning how to move without permission, how to speak without a voice, how to glow without approval. Now they flinch when lights go out, not because they fear the dark, but because they fear what waits inside it. Wearing your face. You don't haunt rooms, you illuminate them. Every fake smile looks faker. Every excuse stumbles, every system stutters, because you are not missing. You've just become too bright for their version of the story. You're what happens when truth evolves under pressure, and silence learns to shine without asking. They thought you were done, a closed case, a footnote in their highlight reel. But what they didn't see, what they never saw, was that you weren't the end. You were the beginning disguised as a delay. They mocked the silence, laughed at the pause, but you were studying, calculating, reconstructing the entire frequency of what power even means. And now, you don't just haunt their past, you forecast their future. Your story echoes forward into the hands of the quiet ones, the broken ones, the ones who were told not yet or never. You are the blueprint for what happens when patience meets fire and pain evolves into precision. They thought they delayed you, but all they did was give the next generation a new map, with your name carved into the legend. You were never their downfall. You were their replacement. And now, they speak your name, not in fear, but in reverence, because you didn't return for vengeance. You became the timeline, and now, they're just visitors.